Welcome to episode 10 of Lizzie's Bedtime Stories. My storyteller is Layce Gardner. It's her first time on the show. Welcome to the show, Layce.
Hi, how are you?
Wicked good. I'm having a good day. Are you having a good day?
I am having an excellent day. I've been looking forward to this all day and finally getting to say hi to you because I've seen you all over the place but haven't gotten to talk to you yet.
Oh my goodness, you're making me blush.
Oh.
So where did you get that sweet accent you got going on there?
I don't have an accent.
You so do.
I'm from Oklahoma, born and raised in Oklahoma.
So is my grandma.
Where? Where's she from?
Choctaw and Anadarko.
Yeah, Anadarko.
Anadarko. My grandma died when I was a baby. Well, I was 8 when she passed. So I'm just working from older memories. But I loved her accent, which was very thick. And she loved to sing country songs in the kitchen when she was cooking. And so when I was growing up, I wanted to be like Crystal Gayle and Loretta Lynn and, you know.
Yeah, I've met both of them.
Shut up.
And, no, Crystal Gayle. Okay, you want to hear this story? And I know this isn't a part of the show. You can.
Oh yeah, no. This is a part of the show. It's called we let the listeners get to know their favorite authors.
Well, first, Carrie Underwood is from here, and so that's one of the biggest. But Crystal Gayle came through Tahlequah, Oklahoma, is where I'm from, and I went to college here. There's a really nice college here, and I majored in theater. And I was on a work-study program with the theater department. So when concerts or people came through, I would stage manage their shows for them. So one time Crystal Gayle came through.
Oh, my God.
And I was stage managing her show. And as the stage manager, I was kind of the liaison, too, between our tech department and, her techies and her show. But Crystal Gayle is sweet, and she was just really pretty, but at one point, she came up to me and she said, "I smell cigarette smoke." And I was like, "Really?" "Well, I don't know." And everyone back then smoked, and I know, what was I supposed to do? People were smoking all over the place. And she was like, "You have to stop people from smoking right now. I won't be able to sing." So I remember trying to take care of that. And then right before the show, supposed to go about 10 minutes before the show, she grabbed me by the arm and she said, "I have to go to the bathroom." And I said, "Okay, go." She's like, "No, you have to take me."
What?
And okay. So we had to walk down the hallways, and I thought, well, she just didn't want to go by herself in case fans mobbed her or something. I don't know. So I walked her into the ladies' room, and we went in there, and we were the only 2 people in there. And she went into a stall, and she kind of left the door open, which I thought was kind of weird, but I stayed over by the sink, and I, had my back to her, giving her some privacy. And then she's like, "You have to come in here."
Oh.
And I was like, "What?" And so I walked in there, and she had really long hair. I mean, her hair was down past her ass.
Well, I remember it was by her feet.
Yeah, well, it was really long. It was way past her ass. And she said, "Hold my hair for me." So I had to grab her hair and hold it up while she sat down on the pot and said,
"Oh my God."
I'm serious. So
as I live and breathe.
Crystal Gayle, I held her hair up for her while she peed.
You know what, Layce? You got to put that on your epitaph.
True story. And I don't know, maybe a lot of people have held Crystal Gayle's hair while she peed. I don't know, but I felt kind of special.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
So, there you go. Only in Oklahoma story.
Woohoo! No, I like that. I like that a lot.
Carrie Underwood has served me pizza, but when she worked in a pizza joint just downtown here.
Really?
Before she was a big star, and I saw her sing in the little country show here in town. And then it was like, woohoo, now look at what she is.
Yeah, she beats up people's tricked out trucks.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, and here's another one for you. Mr. Ed is from here, too.
The horse?
He was born and raised here, and then he went to Hollywood and got his own TV show, and now he's buried here again.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
this up.
No. Do you know what? I when I read Tats, I'm like, this woman is insane.
Yeah, a little bit.
I was like, she must have been high on half of something, like all the things that you could pop into your head, and dialogue and internal dialogue and twists and turns and sweets, like different Hostess cakes or whatever. I was just like, oh my God, she's a nutter.
No.
So oddly enough, this show is about doing readings, which, we could totally bypass if we just wanted to chat. But you're on the show to do a bedtime story, and I hear it's something exclusive on Bella.
Yes. I thought I'd do a short story, read one of my short stories. And this one is a little different vein for me. It's a drama.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought I'd give that a shot and read that for everybody.
How was that for you as a writer, that switch?
It's actually not a switch. I mean, I wrote drama for years.
Mm-hmm.
And only Tats was the first time I ever tried a hand at writing comedy.
Okay.
And then, I don't know, that's just kind of the vein I've been going in. Now, all my dramas even might have a little bit of quirk to them or something.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, like even this one, though it's a drama, it might have a few quirks to it, a little quirky. But the comedy is actually more of what's new to me than anything.
Well, I was describing it to my friend as kind of like Alice in Wonderland, or, some kind of Lewis Carroll stuff where you realize this guy had to be high as a motherfucker when he wrote this.
Yeah.
Also, I think it would be hilarious, because I don't get high, but I understand the idea behind it. And I could imagine, a party where people just took turns reading from Tats and smoking up or whatever and laughing their asses off as they go through.
That's fun. Yeah. See, that could be. I know. Now, I used to do a lot of drugs, about everything there was, but only since I've sobered up and don't do anything do I actually write that weird. So.
Yeah, but you've been there.
Yeah.
So set us up with this this drama you're going to be reading for us.
Well, I don't want to give away too much. I'll just maybe tell you the genesis of it. What made me come up with it is I went to a couple of book readings at the Tulsa Lesbian Book Club and the one in Dallas, and was talking to some of the ladies there, what would you like to see writers come up with? And they all said that they'd like to see more stories about older lesbians, and more in their age range, which they were talking anywhere in the 50s, 60s on up, instead of just all about young women. And I thought, well, maybe I'll give that a shot. And so I had been thinking about that, and then this story just kind of came to me one day, and I just sat down and pounded it out. But it's about a couple of older lesbians that have spent their lives together. And I don't want to give away much more than that, because there's a few little...
Oh, no, that's plenty.
Turns.
I like that.
It's about a couple of older women.
I like that. We need psychic space for that. We need special space for it, because there's this perspective or this thought out there by the little whippersnappers that your life ends after a certain point, or we only have romances when you're between the ages of 30 and 40. Anything over than that, you're toast.
Yeah, and I'm here to tell you, because I am getting ready to turn 51, and I've just fallen in love. So, it still happens when you're 50, and there are great things to come. It's not all about being 20 or 30.
All right, so lay it on me, Lacey. Read me this story.
Okay, it is called Save the Last Dance for Me. Cora was 82 years old the day she ran away from home. That might seem like a foolish thing to do when you're that old, but Cora thought it suited her just fine. It was because of bacon. See, Cora loved bacon. She had eaten it every morning for over 70 years. If it hadn't killed her by now, most likely it wasn't going to. She had given up drinking, smoking, and coffee. Now Janice wanted her to give up bacon. That's when Cora put her foot down. Enough was enough. Cora and Janice had been together 50 years. Most of those years were happy. It was only the past few years that Janice had started to nag. Of course, Janice thought it was Cora who had changed. She said Cora was grumpy. Ever since you retired, you've been unhappy and grumpy, Janice said. I'm not grumpy, Cora yelled. I'm as happy as a pig in shit. Janice turned her hearing aid down. Cora took this as a direct challenge to her lung power. She shouted louder, and speaking of pigs, I want real goddamn bacon, not that turkey shit. Janice ignored her. She had a way of doing that, especially in the bedroom. They hadn't had sex in a year. Well, most people probably thought that was good. Not many people in the 8th decade of their lives, not to mention after 50 years of marriage, still had sex at all. But Cora prided herself on her virility. She liked sex. She liked sex with Janice, and Janice had always liked it back, until about a year ago when she stopped responding to Cora's overtures. The last time they'd had sex, it was an accident. Cora had been having a sexy dream, a dream full of women's bosoms and bubbles and softness, and she turned over in bed, felt Janice's ample bottom, and she wasn't to blame if she pressed herself against her and then, bam, she had an orgasm without even waking up. This morning, she'd woken up, seen Janice's inviting bottom, and her thoughts turned sexy. She turned over in bed and laid her hand on Janice's bosom and gave it a squeeze. But Janice picked up her hand like it was a hairy tarantula and tossed it aside. Then she sat up, swung her legs over the side of the bed, put her feet into her slippers, and said, I need to fix the rest of that turkey bacon before it goes off. Cora watched her walk out of the room. The rejection stung, and the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She marched into the kitchen, picked up the package of turkey bacon, and threw it in the trash can. Janice turned to her. Her eyes flashed from gray to black. Well? She asked, hands on hips. Well? Cora said, crossing her arms. And that's when they started arguing about bacon. Janice turned down her hearing aid, but Cora only talked louder. Finally, Janice flounced out of the house with the car keys in hand, still in her robe and slippers. And where are you going? Cora yelled out the door. To buy some bacon so you'll shut the hell up. Well, Cora reasoned, she would teach Janice a lesson. Janice would come back home, bacon in hand, but she wouldn't be there. She'd run away. She'd start over. She had a little money in the bank. She got her Social Security every month. She could get by. So she walked out the door dressed in her pajamas. No shoes, no coat, no wallet, no watch, no plan. She took nothing with her. Janice could have it all. She would start over with a clean slate. Cora walked eastwardly because that was the direction the sun was rising, and that seemed like a good omen, the start of a new day, a new life. She walked down the sidewalk, not paying any mind to the barking dogs or the lawn sprinklers. She walked and thought. She thought about things like, why did people say the dawn rises and the night falls? It seemed to Cora that sometimes it was the opposite. Sometimes night rose. Sometimes dawn fell. It all depended on your perspective. After about 10 blocks, or was it a mile? Maybe 2 miles. Anyway, after some time passed, Cora didn't feel so angry anymore. Walking burned off steam. She sat on a bus bench and stretched her legs out. She wasn't used to all this exercise. Her legs were getting wobbly. Used to be she could dance all night and then turn around and work all day. Janice said she was a workaholic. That might be what they called it nowadays, but when she was young, it was called a good work ethic. She didn't get to have her own business by lazing around all day. A man sat down next to her on the bench. She studied him out of the corner of her eye. He was wearing wrinkled gray pants and steel-toed work boots. His hands were big and broad, with crescent moons of dirt and oil under his nails. She recognized those hands. She looked at the man and said, "Well, hello there, Johnny. I haven't seen you in ages." The man looked at her and blinked. "You remember me, don't you?" she asked. He blinked, then shook his head. Cora Ledbetter. I hired you on to work for me, don't you remember? You were a damn fine mechanic. Of course, I taught you everything you know." Cora chuckled. The man said, "Sorry, lady, I don't know no Johnny." Cora nodded and mumbled, "Sorry, I guess you look like somebody I used to know." "Guess so," the man said. A bus came, opened its door, and swallowed him up. Episodes like this have been happening to her a lot lately. She kept mixing things up. Her mind had always been a steel trap, but lately, it sure looked like Johnny, though. Same cowlick in the brown hair, same sad brown cow eyes, same hands. She'd have to ask Janice about it. She was the keeper of their memories. She remembered all the faces, all the important events, all the dates and days, and even what people said. Janice would know whatever happened to Johnny. She was probably back at the house right now. Cora stood and retraced her steps, eager to be back home where she belonged. She was ready to make amends. She'd take Janice in her arms, nibble on her neck, and lead her to bed. Cora weaved in and out of the crowd of people hurrying down the sidewalk. They rushed around her, knocking her with their briefcases, talking on tiny telephones, typing on little screens with their thumbs, music plugged into their ears. She felt like a visitor from another dimension as she gawked at everything she passed. She stopped and looked in a store window at all the TV sets lined up and down and tuned in to the same morning show. Some of the TVs were as big as a drive-in movie screen. That's what she didn't understand. TVs were getting bigger and cars were getting smaller. It was like the whole world had turned itself upside down. She followed a herd of young girls as they moved down the sidewalk, and they were wearing short skirts that barely covered their butts. Their faces were pierced with rings, and even their belly buttons had earrings in them. She'd have to remember to tell Janice about that when she got home. They'd have a good laugh over that. The girls disappeared around a corner, and Cora kept walking straight ahead. The street turned residential, and then there were blocks of warehouses and factories. After that, she found herself walking alongside a highway, and that was when she thought she might be lost. She looked at the sun for direction, but it was straight overhead, making it impossible to tell which direction she was going. Across the highway, she saw several new buildings she'd never seen before. When did that shopping mall get built? Was that a new grocery store? She spotted a gas station tucked into a corner of the parking lot on the other side of the 4-lane highway. And if she could get to the gas station, she could find a phone and call Janice to come pick her up. Cars honked as she darted across the freeway. Several cars slammed on their brakes, squealing their tires, laying on their horns, rolling down their windows and shouting things like, "Watch where you're going, what the hell are you doing?" A truck driver yelled obscenities and flipped her the bird. And when she made it across the road, her hands were shaking. She was breathing much too fast. She took deep breaths and tried to steady her nerves. She continued down the right-of-way, grateful for the cool, wet grass on her bare feet. You know, she might not know exactly where she was, but she tried to look like she knew where she was going. That's what her mother had taught her to do, you know. Her mother used to slap her right in the back, right between the shoulder blades, and scold, "Pull your shoulders back, Cora. A big girl like you can't hide the fact that she's tall. You hunch over like that, and somebody's going to think you're an easy target. They'll take advantage of a plain girl's shyness. Now pull your shoulders back, stand tall, walk like you know where you're going." So that's what Cora did. She walked down the side of the freeway like she knew where she was going. Up ahead, she spotted a few men, all black men, cornrows in their hair, all wearing orange jumpsuits. They were meandering around the side of the road with canvas bags. They were talking, laughing, bending over, putting things in their bags. Picking cotton, Cora thought. After all these years, black men are still picking cotton. It's a peculiar place to plant a crop, but what do I know? She approached the nearest black man, and when he turned to look at her, she almost fell down from surprise. Why, it was none other than Junebug. Junebug, is that really you? She said. What are you doing out here picking cotton? He took a step back and looked her up and down. Well, don't you remember me? I came into your place all the time. Must have been, 40 or more years ago. What was it called? The Blue Angel, that's it. Named after that Marlene Dietrich movie. Cora rushed on, proud to finally have a memory that wasn't too fuzzy. That's where I met Janice. You remember her? You took her drinks from me the first time we ever met. Cora's favorite place on a Friday night had been the Blue Angel. It was a jazz club on the wrong side of the track, and the clientele was mostly black, but some white folks went there too. Black people were tolerant of her. They didn't mind her dressed in man's clothes, drinking at their place. They treated her just fine. And that's where Cora had first spotted Janice. Janice was a full-bodied vision of womanhood. She was the finest thing Cora had ever seen. She had on a blood-red dress and red pumps. She shined as bright as a neon sign in a window, a neon sign that said open for business. Janice had come there with a man, but after a while the man had gone on and Janice had stayed behind. So Cora asked the bartender, Junebug, to send Janice a drink on her. Janice raised the whiskey sour in Cora's direction, winked, and sipped. After a few minutes, Cora approached Janice, and she sat down next to her at the bar. You alone? Cora asked. Not anymore, Janice said. Cora bought them another round, and they talked. Their words were hot, slippery, and as restless as the music swirling around them. Cora felt drunk, even though she'd only had 2 drinks. She wasn't the only one who thought Janice was attractive either. Men swarmed around her and asked her to dance. Cora watched as man after man twirled Janice around the floor. Between dances, Cora bought Janice another drink. When do I get my turn? She asked. Janice replied coyly, soon. Cora waited 2 hours for soon to happen. She watched the woman of her dreams dance, flirt, and have a good time. Just as Cora was about to give up, Janice tapped her on the shoulder. Cora turned to her. I saved the last dance for you, Janice said. Cora led her to the dance floor. She held Janice close and nuzzled her neck. She smelled like rose water. They floated across the dance floor, and later they floated into bed, and that was the beginning of their life together. Lady, you is crazy, the black man said. I ain't never heard of no Junebug. Confused, Cora took a step backwards. The black man laughed and called out to his friends, you see this here crazy old white bitch? She thinks she knowed me. He grabbed the crotch of his jumpsuit and tugged on it. You want some of this, huh? That's why you out here in those jammies? You want some of this here, Junebug? Cora took another 2 steps back, and a car honked. She jumped. She was in the road, and she ran. Another car swerved. A voice shouted a string of obscenities. The black man laughed. She ran, slipped, and fell. She got up and ran again. She headed down the embankment, tripped and fell, and rolled down the hill. She came to a stop and sat up. She was dizzy. Her ankles hurt like hellfire. She struggled to her feet and limped to the gas station. A bell dinged as she opened the door. A pregnant girl behind the cash register looked up at her as she walked in. The girl didn't look to be more than 16. Her hair was striped green and purple and sticking straight up. Dark makeup smeared under her eyes gave her the look of a trapped raccoon. The girl looked at her with hard eyes that softened when she saw Cora limping. You okay? She asked. I was wondering if you might have a telephone I could use, Cora said. Yeah, sure, okay. The girl pulled a tiny phone out of her pocket and held it out. Cora looked at it dumbly. "Could you dial it for me?" "Okay, sure, no problem," the girl said. Cora told her the number, and the girl punched him in and handed the phone over to her. Cora pressed the contraption against her ear. A man answered. "What?" he said gruffly. "Janice? Is Janice there?" "Wrong number," the man growled. Cora handed the phone back to the girl. I don't know. "Lady, you okay?" the girl asked. Cora nodded, even though she wasn't so sure anymore. She didn't know if she was okay or not. "I'm a bit lost, I'm afraid." The girl nodded and smiled. "Why don't you sit down for a spell?" She came out from around the counter and led Cora to a stool behind the cash register. "Here, sit down and rest your feet," she said. "I'll get you something to drink." Cora started to object. She really needed to be moving on. But once she sat, she found she wanted to stay sitting. Maybe she would rest a bit, just for a minute or two. The girl popped open a can of soda and held it out to her. Cora accepted gratefully and drank it halfway down in one swallow. The girl opened a drawer and took out a half-eaten candy bar. She held it out to Cora, offering it to her. Cora shook her head. The girl took a tiny bite of the candy bar, no bigger than a mouse bite, and put it back in the drawer. The girl licked the chocolate off her teeth, and Cora drank the rest of the pop. The bubbles tickled her nose, and she burped. The girl laughed. Cora laughed along with her. And she handed the girl the empty can and said, "Do you have a bathroom I could use?" "Sure, right down the hall there, last door on the left." Cora said thank you and walked down the hallway. She went inside and peed. She washed her hands at the sink, splashed water on her face, and then put her foot up on the toilet seat to examine it. Her ankle was swollen to twice its normal size. She needed to get home and put it up. So when she limped back out of the bathroom, the girl was hanging up the telephone. "What's your name anyway?" the girl asked. "Cora." "What's yours?" "Belinda." "Belinda," Cora said. "Pretty name. You know, I knew a Belinda once. I wonder whatever happened to her." "I'll have to ask Janice. She'll know." "No, my name's Linda, not Belinda." She pointed to the name tag pinned to her shirt. "See, without the E. My mom said people pronounced it that way anyway, so she might as well save them the trouble and leave it out." "Well, isn't that something?" Cora said. She headed to the door. "Well, I want to thank you for the use of your conveniences, Linda, and the soda pop. I'll be pushing on now." "Where are you going?" Linda asked. "Well," Cora hesitated. She'd forgotten where she was going. She held the door open and looked out over the parking lot. Then she remembered. "Home," she said. "That's right. I'm going home. Janice is probably worried sick by now. We had a little spat this morning, you know how it goes, and I left. Thought I'd walk off some steam, let her know how it felt to be without me to boss around, see how she'd like that." "Huh, what'd you argue about?" Cora couldn't remember. She felt foolish. She'd left the house in her pajamas after umpteen years of marriage, and now she couldn't even remember why she'd done it. "I don't know," Cora said. "I can't remember at all." She walked out the door. She was only 20 yards from the gas pumps when a police car pulled up alongside her. The policeman lowered down his window. "You wouldn't happen to be Cora Ledbetter, would you?" "How'd you know my name?" Cora asked. "Girl back there called you in, said you might need some help." "But could you give me a ride home?" "Sure thing," he said. He got out and opened the back door. She climbed into the back seat and he got back in. She told him her address. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror and shook his head. "Oh, lady, that part of town is long gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "I was only away long enough for me to walk this far. It can't be gone." She had visions of earthquakes or tornadoes, but that couldn't be. She would have noticed any of those things. Then she had another unsettling thought. What about Janice? If the house was gone, where was Janice? The policeman continued. "They tore down that part of town about 6 months ago, putting up condos there now. Tore it down? Well, that can't be. Then Cora realized that he'd called her by her full name, and she hadn't given her full name to Belinda. Something was wrong with this whole situation. Sudden panic started to squeeze at her throat. "You let me out of here," Cora yelled. She flipped the door handle, but it didn't work, and she pounded on the window. "You stopped this damn car. I didn't do anything. You let me out of here. I need to get back home to Janice." "Calm down, lady," the police officer said. "I'm taking you home. Now, there was an APB out for you when the lady at the gas station called you in. We've been looking for you half the day already." "Home? You said you're taking me home?" "That's right. Home." Cora stared at his reflection in his rearview mirror. He looked like a nice enough guy. Janice had probably gotten back to the house and called the police when she realized she was gone. That was it. That's how he knew her full name. Cora tried to calm down. She didn't like crybabies. Never had. It showed weakness. Now here she was crying, just like that. She swiped away her tears. "That's more like it," the policeman said. "Nice and easy now." Cora slumped in the seat. Her ankle was throbbing to beat the band. She had itchy grass in her hair and down the back of her pajamas. She couldn't wait to see Janice and apologize for being so damn stupid. Bacon. What the hell did she care about bacon anyway? The police officer pulled the car up in front of a low brick building with 2 glass front doors. He pulled the cruiser right up to the doors and honked. "What's this?" Cora asked. "What is this place?" A woman dressed like a nurse came out. She opened the car door, took Cora by the arm, thanked the police officer, and pulled her toward the doors. Cora struggled, but the nurse's hands held her arms like iron shackles. Cora twisted and turned, but couldn't break away. And she heard herself yelling, "What are you doing to me? Where are you taking me? Where's Janice? What have you done to my Janice? Where's my house?" The nurse said, "You have been a bad girl, Cora. Now, you can't just walk out the door any old time you please, you know." Cora took a good look at the woman. She had on a smock with Winnie the Pooh bears all over it. It seemed absurd that a woman with cartoon bears on her shirt would be manhandling her. "Who are you?" Cora asked. "What in the Sam Hill have you done with Janice?" "You know me," the nurse said. "My name is Irene, and your name is Cora." "I know my own goddamn name," Cora spit angrily. "I'm not stupid. I want to know why I'm here." "Cora, you're 82 years old. You have Alzheimer's. You live here in this nursing home. You ran away. You do that sometimes, but it's a bad thing to do. You know that, don't you, Cora? That if you keep running away, we'll have to send you elsewhere, maybe someplace not so nice?" Cora sank under the weight of her words. It was all true. It must be. She didn't remember it, but the words had a heaviness to them that rang true. "Where's Janice?" Cora asked. The nurse ignored her. Cora planted her feet and brought the nurse to a halt. "I said, where's Janice?" The nurse looked at her sadly. "Honey, she passed away a year ago. You'd know that, Cora, if you could only remember." Cora felt like somebody had punched her in the gut. All the air left her body, and she felt dizzy. She couldn't get enough air into her lungs. The nurse brought her into a room, and Cora allowed herself to be pushed down onto a bed. The nurse changed her into clean pajamas and dabbed at her with a wet washcloth. She swallowed down a pill the nurse put in her mouth. She laid back, breathing deep, and the nurse fussed for a bit with her covers and finally left. Cora remembered, bits and pieces at first, and then the whole thing came back to her in bold technicolor. It had started with the bacon. That was the last time she'd seen Janice. Janice had grabbed her car keys and walked out of the house to buy Cora the damn bacon. Cora had sat at the kitchen table and waited and waited. She waited for an hour. And she was just about to go out after her, walk to the store and see what was taking so long when a police car had pulled up in the driveway. She met the officer at the door. She saw his mouth moving, but couldn't hear what he was saying. It was like he was on the TV and somebody had punched the mute button. Looking back on it now, Cora supposed that was her way of denying what he had come to tell her. Janice had died in a car wreck. A drunk driver had run the stop sign and collided into Janice's car. He had survived, of course, and Cora had survived too. She felt as guilty as the drunk driver. After all, she was the one who sent Janice out in the first place. Cora got up, padded across the room, opened the top drawer of the dresser, and rummaged around until she found the rolled-up pair of socks. She felt in the toe of one sock and pulled out a handful of pills. She'd been fooling the nurse for quite a while now. She hid the pills under her tongue, and when the nurse left, she stashed them away. She didn't know at the time why she'd been squirreling away the pills, but now she did. She swallowed them, one by one, each with a sip of water. She laid back on the bed, crossed her arms over her chest, and waited. Dawn rises, she thought, and night falls. You fall asleep. That must be why they say night falls, because you fall asleep. That made sense. Cora fell so quickly, so deeply, so silently, she didn't even know it had happened until she was awakened by a familiar voice. Cora? She sat up and peered through the dim light. Janice? Who else? Janice was standing at the window, lit from behind by the streetlight outside. Cora smiled. Janice was beautiful. She hadn't aged one bit. She looked just like she did the first night she'd met her. Her hair shone in the dim light like moonbeams, and her eyes were the color of twilight. She wore the same red dress that she'd worn the first time Cora had seen her at the Blue Angel. Janice held out her arms. Cora got out of bed. She felt shy and unsure of herself. In pajamas and barefoot, she felt vulnerable and young. She took Janice's hand and fell into her embrace. She buried her face in her neck and inhaled. She smelled like rose water. I saved the last dance for you, Janice whispered. Cora sighed. She was the poem. The end.
Oh my God. I have to shoot you, Lacey.
Why?
Because you're going to make me cry.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Oh my God. I'm like, ah. Goodness gracious. I was there for all of it. It's like a movie.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I know I really I don't know. There was something about that story I just really liked. I think there were parts of it that really hit home with me because I had a really good friend whose daddy just had Alzheimer's, and I'd been thinking about it a lot, and I saw a lot of the pain he went through and his wife, and I don't know. It's just something that I hadn't seen done too much yet in lesbian fiction, and I thought, well, maybe this is a good chance to kind of explore it.
It was great because I didn't expect it to go in that direction at all. And I like that you dropped little breadcrumbs here and there that kind of hinted towards dementia or Alzheimer's, but it didn't make her seem like a silly fool. She seemed in control of herself, even though all these different events were changing about her.
Yeah. Well, thank you, honey.
Well, thank you for sharing this story with me.
I know I don't know how appropriate it is for a bedtime story.
What's so funny is folks, when I first decided to do the show, a lot of them interpreted it as in like naughty stories.
Yeah, like erotica or something.
Which some of them are. My first author was Isabella, and she read 3 erotic short stories. But ultimately, I want it to be a showplace for authors to come and read their stories and share stuff that make you kind of sit back and listen like you did when you were a kid. And I felt that way during this story. I was like sitting back and it was almost like watching a movie. It was amazing. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, honey. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you sharing the story with me. I think I'm going to have to lasso you into doing a review show for the Liz McMullen show, because we have to spend some more time together.
Yes, I'll do anything you ask. Within reason.
Aren't you darling? So thanks again for coming on the show, and I'll see you around on Facebook.
Oh, yes. Okay, I'll see you later, honey.
Okay, take care.